Hollow Knight, Soul and Magic written by Uncharted Chip 38, Nightmare Night Part 2. The area was becoming scorched and scarlet flames as the figure of Grimm slowly floated towards the group. Unlike his previous form, the Nightmare King replaced many of his dark colors with various shades of red and his sharp edges were sharper. The horns on his head extended further and the aura he gave off was one of fear and rage. Either the King of Nightmares was this powerful or Gotham allowed him to have no shackles. The elements worked before, they should work again, Twilight said aloud, looking towards her friends to confirm her plan before they could focus and blast the Nightmare King with their beam. They found themselves suddenly yanked into the ground. Scarlet appendages held the 6 elements down as the Nightmare King began his attack, teleporting close to the remaining 2 combatants then taking a swing at them with his sharp claws. It was practically the same attack from earlier but faster and more orbs of flame fired. Thankfully the orbs weren't aimed towards the main 6. Since they were currently incapacitated, the Nightmare King focused on the only combatants that could hurt him directly. He reappeared above them before dive-bombing with a trail of flames behind him. Luna and Ghost avoided the attack but were unable to land any counter-attacks. The Nightmare appeared away from Ghost and Luna before opening his cape to fire double the amount of fire bats. They were easy to avoid thanks to their pattern and Ghost took the initiative to land a strike, jumping through a gap in the attack to slash at the Nightmare King before he disappeared. His attack did little damage but it was damage on the being at least. The Nightmare appeared above the duo once more before the ground beneath them began to glow in scarlet flames. Ghost's eyes widened before he pushed the princess out of the way to tank the full hit, the flames themselves covering his entire body and searing his void body. But nerves he had were on overdrive with the amount of pain he was feeling at this very moment. Enough to force Ghost to his knees before using some soul to heal himself. The Nightmare King is clearly toying with us. From what tales I have heard about powerful nightmare entities, they could corrupt us if they truly wanted to, Princess Luna commented, her horn glowing brightly as she braced herself for an attack. Ghost finished healing the damage he had taken, readying his nail to block our strike. That's not how the Nightmare King works. We're only continuing his ritual whether we like it or not. Come again? The princess questioned. This fight we are in is to simply destroy his old body to replace it. Death and resurrection tied in one. Dance, die, and live forever, Ghost said simply before he saw red mist form ahead of them on cue. The Nightmare King charged at them immediately with slashes. Ghost blocked each slash quite expertly, giving Luna an opportunity to fire a magical beam. Being so close, the beam would hit the Nightmare in the face. Recoiling in pain, he disappeared only to reappear and fire off another volley of fire bats. Luna put up a magical shield in front of them both, but unlike Grimm's previous form, the fire bats caused several cracks within the shield before breaking it entirely. The intensity of the attack was enough to temporarily send the princess back. Ghost had not time to check on her since the Nightmare King began sending fire orbs in every direction. Dodging and weaving through the barrage of flames, Ghost unleashed a shrieking abyss. The attack was enough to cause the Nightmare King to split into multiple bats like his lesser form, but it only lasted for a second before he realized. Ghost had faced this god before, but clearly the Nightmare King had gathered much more strength. Before, Ghost was the main catalyst to the ritual which allowed him an easier fight. Now, he was facing the Nightmare King when he had devoured much more essence in a magical land. While Ghost continued to square off with the Nightmare, Luna got back up with a grunt. She turned towards the main 6 and used her magic to dispel the scarlet tendrils holding them down. Princess Luna, are you alright? Twilight Sparkle asked with concern. The Lunar Monarch gave it up before turning towards the fight. I am fine. But the Nightmare King is quite strong, possibly too strong for me. Rainbow Dash looked ready to brawl with the Nightmare King by taking a few practice punches with her hooves. Once we hit him hard enough, he'll go down just like the rest. Luna was silent but gave a nod. Twilight and her friends make their formation by linking their hooves together and blasting harmony of the Nightmare King. Ghost jumped out of the way since he had no clue if it would have an effect on him. The beam struck the Nightmare King, but it didn't look like he was being sent into the Nightmare Realm. Instead, red mist put out of him for a moment and went out of the arena before he turned his attention to the group once more. That didn't work. What else did we got? Ghost questioned, having several scorch marks on his mask due to the attacks he was hit with. That's all we got besides brute force. How did the elements of harmony not work on him? Twilight answered before looking towards her friends in confusion. Godseeker had been silent while observing the fight in front of her until she heard the ponies question how their ancient relics did not defeat the Nightmare King. Silly goddesses, the Nightmare King will not be defeated by such easy methods. Combat is the true way to defeat him. All he has done is spread his nightmare influence with your magic. What she said was true with the fact the Nightmare King continued his relentless assault of attacks on the group. The mist that had flown out of him made its way to the Hall of Gods before entering a specific statue. The blue mist combined with the red mist in the statue ignited with a fierce glow. The statue broke in an instant and the mist made its way up towards the arena. As the group fought, the moon in the distance had gotten closer before splitting open to reveal Nightmare Moon once more. Her appearance looked exactly the same except for two minor differences. Her horn looked more like a spike and her armor was a darker violet. The fight between the ponies and the Nightmare King stopped as Nightmare Moon made her entrance. "I am free of that prison you have subjected me to. Another nightmare to take my place." The tall Alicorn questioned the Nightmare King narrowed his eyes towards Nightmare Moon before switching targets and firing scarlet bats at her. With the Nightmare Heart literally in the same area, the auras of both nightmares were overflowing. Their nightmarish flames of night and scarlet clashing against one another while the combatants below could only watch. It seems the essence of the Nightmare King has given rise to the Queen. Fascinating, Godseeker uttered, and August looked at the two battle-in nightmares before he turned to the Nightmare Heart. If Nightmare Moon was rejuvenated via the heart, then what's to say that even with banishment, they won't come back? If Ghost had a chance in ending this before it got out of hand, then he would need to take out the Nightmare King. "Princess Luna, you and the element should leave. I'll end this right here," Ghost stated firmly, looking to Godseeker. The religious bug knew what Ghost had planned before bowing. While bowed, the crest on her shell was glowing before a single beam fired towards Ghost. He caught it with his nail with the blade going from pale white to a bright yellow. He watched the nightmares fight each other, sending attacks of flame or magic back and forth. He looked at his enhanced nail and felt the power within it thanks to the Godseeker. The power of the previous gods of Halaunist, a taste of the Shaped Lord. His void eyes looking at his reflection on the weapon where his features seemed to open to the multi-appendage entity that he was in a previous life. He set aside that feeling and ran towards the embattled nightmares. His nail was glowing quite brightly with the power he had received. He had begun to sprint to close the gap much faster while preparing to strike the nearest enemy. The Nightmare King had his back turned to Ghost while blocking several magical blasts from Nightmare Moon. He was unaware of the approaching attack behind him until he felt a slash hit his back. The empowered blade was enough to cause him to materialize into multiple bats once more. Nightmare Moon glared down at the vessel but was answered with a shrieking abyss that sent her retreating for a moment. Both nightmares appeared on either side of Ghost, firing their respective attacks at him. He jumped over the bats and blasts while using his monarch wings for extra mobility. He flew over the Nightmare King first before dive-bombing him with a descending dark. The Nightmare King attempted to reposition, but the attack landed as Eagleport. Ghost found his target on the other side of the arena. The Nightmare King attempted to fire endless fire herbs at his opponent but forgot that Nightmare Moon was firing at him. The magical blasts were enough to force him to reposition again. He repositioned in the middle of the arena to set the floor aflame but his scarlet eyes only saw the shadow of a blade over him. Ghost's nail was brought above his head before dropping it down on the Nightmare King. With a combination of his previous battles empowering him and the void under his command, the weapon struck true. A deep cut was on the Nightmare King's chest which fired out scarlet mist explosively. The only sounds that were heard was an ear-piercing shriek before the whole field flashed in scarlet light. The Nightmare Heart glowed as the figure of the entity dissipated. The leftover mist lingering the arena traveled over to Nightmare Moon and entered her form. Before anyone could raise a question to what was occurring, the arena faded. Everyone woke up to find themselves in Grimm's tent once more with the troop master standing above them. He lost the extra red and went back to his darker exterior. "Well fought, well fought. I am quite impressed that you completed the ritual like that. Empowering your own blade and attempting to seal me away with the elements of harmony. Too bad only one of those worked out," Grimm said simply while extending a hand to Ghost. Ghost warily grabbed Grimm's hand and was hauled upwards where the Grimkin were gathered around. Luna and the elements readied themselves for a fight, but were genuinely surprised when the Grimkin clapped. With their stubby little cloth arms, they clapped with approving expressions. "Did Ghost not kill you?" Luna questioned, looking around in confusion of the clapping Grimkin. The troop master nodded. "Oh yes, I perished but was reborn with a Grimkield. Such is my nature to die and reincarnate. Even with all of Halaunist's strength, my friend could not banish me. Neither could the elements so. The Grimkield was just another body for you." Fluttershy asked hesitantly, noticing that Grimkield was nowhere to be seen. "Yes, Shy One. It was a vessel." Grimm stood up and opened his cape to address the crowd. "The ritual is complete. Return home, my friends. I shall see you in a year's time." Just as they entered, a rip in the sky allowed the Grimkin to float off and leave the ponies alone. The tent shuddered before materializing entirely, leaving the dirt of Ponyville untouched. Grimm closed his cape and the portal collapsed, the nightmare lantern going silent and lacking any flame. Luna turned to Grim with a frown. You attempted to put Equestria in danger to fulfill your own ritual. How could you do that to those who received you with decency? The Nightmare chuckled before looking at Ponyville returning to their festival without the Grim King terrorizing them. Lunar Princess, I work differently than you. I simply had to be the catalyst to finish a necessity. If I had stood by and watched this wonderful night go along, I would be starving myself to death. Although, I feel different. How? Ghost raised a brow while Grim put a hand under his chin to think the elements of harmony had returned to Ponyville, leaving Grim, Luna, and Ghost to watch over the town. Grim looked at the moon while he thought on how to answer such a question. During his release to the Nightmare Heart's control, he felt a part of himself being absorbed into something. No, someone else. I believe that I am now tied to another nightmare. Why she tied herself to me, I have no clue. Something you two will have to question, although, I do admit that I find her action very resourceful, Grim finally answered, but let's not think on that. I believe I should leave for the festivities. Grim disappeared in a puff of smoke and reappeared on top of Ponyville's town hall. The sound of music was playing once more for his liking. The ponies beneath him flinched, expecting the Grim King to invade once more, but were surprised when the Nightmare King began to sing again. Shadows dream of endless fire. Flames devour and embers swoop. The lights around the town turned to scarlet red while Grim began to play around with his pyrokinesis, making various animals out of the herbs in front of the various ponies. Fear was replaced with awe as his song continued. One will light the Nightmare Lantern. Call and servant Grim's dread troop of flames came together to form the Tale of the Grim Troop, the very first ritual to take place. A long tradition of gathering the souls of the dead to feed the heart. The current master, stuck in a perpetual loop of death and resurrection, dance and die and live forever, silent voices shout and sing. Stand before the troop's dark marrow and burn away the Nightmare King. The flames took the form of the Nightmare King fighting different combatants that looked like the elements, Ghost, and Luna. Replaying the battle that had been done in Gotham for the ponies to see. The victory now ending the night peacefully. Some of the colts and fillies began to ask Grim to perform some other tricks in his sleeve. The Troop Master obliged them while the rest of the town performed their traditions. Various games, contests, and food being the main stars of the night. The moon becoming brighter with the happiness of the town. Grim then looked towards a specific direction, staring directly to the borders of this realm before his eyes glowed red brightly. Happy Nightmare Night. A snap of his fingers and the scene turned to darkness. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like.